Well, hello, folks, and welcome to the Dieter Melhorn Fishing Podcast. I hope you're having a good day, whatever day it is that you happen to be listening to the show or watching it here on YouTube. I run the podcast in both places, and that way get the content out to everybody. I hope you're doing well, man. This one is being taped in late fall. We're in the last month of fall, and we're going to talk about catfish and what goes on with them now. Do you even have a chance of catching a catfish this late in the year? As many of you know, I don't fish any in October. I spend my time in the woods deer hunting. That's where I've been. Still put up content, still got videos up, still got up podcasts and stuff, but a lot of that stuff was shot well before October comes in. I really just take a break. And sadly, it's one of the best times of the year to be fishing. The fall's a great time to be on the water fishing. There's a lot of fish to be caught. They're active. Conditions are nice. It's not as much of a beat down out there with the heat and the boat traffic. And it's just a beautiful time to be on the water. You know, leaves are changing. Temperatures are very moderate. You know, you need like a hoodie in the morning to get out there, and then it warms up nicely during the day. And I spend the time in the deer woods hunting. We've had a great season, by the way. My son's killed 2 nice bucks. I've killed 2. I don't shoot a lot of deer anymore. I kind of leave it up to him to shoot them, but I had opportunity on 2 nice ones this year that were worth taking. So in that world, we've got plenty of food in the freezer, so we're doing good there. Probably got a couple more hunts left in me, and then I'll be back fishing. But I know a lot of people ask and message, me about fishing and what they should be doing and all that. And it's been a while since I've fished much in the fall. I did some. I'll do some here and there. This year I decided to take some time off. I had a very busy schedule leading up to this, and just said, man, I'm taking some time off and enjoying life a little bit. So it's to say all that, you guys that don't hunt and get out and fish, you're out there at a good time. But some things happen right now, and it's one of those times where we start to transition into some of the slower time. Going through October, not that bad. Here in November, temperatures have been very moderate, at least where I'm at, and really across most of the country. Very moderate temperatures, and we've not had really any cold mornings. Daytime temperatures, we're still hitting 80 degrees here. We had a couple days where it only got up to around 70, but it's still unseasonably warm for our fall. So that equates to higher water temperatures. Higher water temperatures mean fish remain active longer, especially you guys that fish for flatheads. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about here. There's some differences in some of the different species of fish and what goes on in some different places where you're fishing rivers, lakes, or small ponds, community lakes, community ponds, that kind of thing. So the biggest thing is, now for this year, again, this year specific, is that our temperatures up to this point have been relatively warm, and this is going to mean the fishing's going to remain good. Every year it's going to vary. Sometimes by now we've already had a first freeze, but we're lucky and we've got an extended fishing period. So you guys that are fishing especially smaller bodies of water, something like a farm pond or a community pond, something like that, it's really going to benefit you a lot, because those smaller bodies of water are affected more quickly, usually because they don't have the depth that a larger lake has to kind of hold some of that radiant heat that is in there to keep the temperatures from shifting as quickly. So that equates out to something good for you guys. A lot of those smaller little lakes have a lot of channel catfish. That seems to be the predominant fish in there, unless they've been stocked with something that people have brought in. So that's kind of that's good for you guys. You're getting some extended time here. At the taping of this, this is November, and that's typically when stuff starts to really, really cool down. It's when I start to see the fall off in the bite with the channel catfish, and especially the flatheads. We'll touch on those for a second. We get into this later part, this is when the flatheads really start to lock down. This year I haven't fished for them. I've seen some people still catching them. But once that temperature starts to drop, below that mid-60s, 60-degree mark, it really comes to a halt. Not that you can't catch them. You can catch those fish any time of the year, no matter how cold it is. But as far as actively going out and targeting them, you're not going to be able to really do that as effectively, especially rolling here into November. I think at some point we're going to get some cold temperatures. For now, we're just kind of, pushing off the inevitable that's coming. But flatheads, for the most part, most of y'all can forget about really targeting and catching. When you catch one, it's a bonus. It's like, hey, boom, I got one. You'll see me if I catch any videos in the wintertime. I make a big deal out of it because they'll still feed. They're just not in that active predator mode like they are, April through, October. So we kind of knock those off the list there. Channel catfish will still bite. My experience has been that, now granted, they're not biting at the same rate they were a month ago, 2 months ago, because channel catfish, as you've heard me say before, their metabolism increases exponentially with temperature increase. So the more the temperature goes up, the more they're active and they're feeding. As it goes down, the opposite happens, and they become less and less active. But I've caught them in some cold temperatures, and I've caught some of the bigger channel catfish that I catch in some of the colder temperatures. The difference there is it's been in deeper water. I've caught these fish drifting, dragging some of the deeper areas of the lakes that I fish. So you can still catch them. The ponds may be affected a little bit more because that temperature, you're not going to have as much temperature separation as you will in a bigger, deeper body of water. So they may become a little more inactive for you guys that are fishing there. Same thing with bank fishing. Depending on what your bank setup is and how much access you have to deeper water will probably play a part in what kind of fish you can catch here in the next couple of months as these temperatures start to drop. A lot of these fish will be transitioning away from some of the shallower water into some of the deeper water, and it may be difficult for a lot of bank people to get access to them. But not all bank fishing is equal. I've said that before. Not all of it is, confined to shallow water. There's a lot of places bank fishing, you've got access to deep water. So if you're doing your homework, doing your research, using the apps to see where some of the deeper water is, you may be able to use those spots if you got multiple spots to get to target and fish. And it's a tougher deal, as always, for bank fishermen. But if you're hardcore into it and you do it a lot and you've got a lot of options and you're willing to travel, that's the other big thing is, a lot of people, to be successful at bank fishing, you have to really be able to cover some ground and do some driving and get to some places that give you some options. So that's something else to keep in mind. Whereas as boat fishermen that fish from boats, we spend our money on boat gas. You're going to spend your money on truck gas getting to a place where you got some access. So that's kind of a little different scenario for you there. The other thing you're going to see as next couple of months, the blue catfish are going to keep biting. Probably not as much with the smaller fish as aggressively, but this is the time period when some of the bigger fish are feeding, and this is pretty much true across any of the blue catfish fisheries around. Some of the bigger fish I've caught over the time I've been fishing have been caught in that November, December time frame, and I don't know why that is. We try to explain it away as they are eating bigger baits to fatten up for the winter. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it for some reason, some of the bigger 50, 60-pound fish have come in November, especially December, and before we get the super cold temperatures that we typically get in the southeast around January. So it's a good time. Now, as far as bait goes, this is the time of the year, if you guys are fishing for channel catfish, looking for the easy baits, I stay away from the stink bait stuff. Generally, that stuff does not work as good once temperatures drop. I think a lot of that has to do with scent dissemination in the colder water because it's denser. And it could have something to do with just what they're feeding on and how active they are. Channel catfish really love that stuff, not so much the blues and the flathead. So you guys are targeting channel catfish, that probably appeals more to you, but stay away from that stuff. I'm a cut bait guy this time of the year. I like going with the cut bait. I feel like they hit it better. But with that said, over the past several years since I've been using chicken, I've caught a lot of fish drifting and dragging using chicken. I usually go with my split equal combo of half cut bait, half chicken to see what's working because fish are still feeding on mussels. And even if they're not, they may want to hit it. They may want something smaller. I generally fish bigger baits because I'm in my head trying to target bigger fish. As I've said before, using big bait does not mean you're going to catch a big fish. But in my head, like a lot of people, I feel, man, if I put a big bait out there, a big fish is going to eat it. Well, it's more a little fish is probably not going to eat it. But I like putting the bigger baits out there, and I've had good success with them. This comes into a time of the year when we do some trolling for hybrid bass on nearby lakes and striped bass, and we get some bycatch of spotted bass, which are legal where I'm at in North Carolina to use as cut bait. And I end up using these pieces of bait, and these are usually huge chunks of bait, and I've caught some good fish on them. So if you like using big bait, this is a good time to use those baits. So I say, you big bait guys, it's a good time to put those things out. It does seem like the fish will hit them better this time of the year, and for whatever reason. But the fish I caught last year, I take that back. The big one I caught, the personal best on the local lake, which I think was 62 pounds, 63, something like that. It was on a large perch head, if I remember correctly. And I caught one right before that that was in the 40s. That was, I think, on a body chunk. But a few days later, caught some not quite that big that were on little bitty pieces, perch fillets that I had out. So I think all the baits will work. I do stay away from the manufactured stuff. I feel like, in my head anyway, I try to put the focus on bigger fish. I realize I'm going to catch fewer fish, especially we get into late November into December. It's not a time for a lot of fish. It's a time for maybe a big fish. So I kind of go in with that mentality that is hero or zero fishing, especially as you get late fall, which we're really into the last month of it, and into the winter. So we're transitioning into that winter, the winter months, December, January, February, and I try those bigger baits. Now, the one thing I'll say, and I'll say this when I talk about some of the winter fishing later on in some podcasts, is that at some point in wintertime when it gets really, really cold, it seems like downsizing the baits will work. And that's something we'll talk about in some future stuff as we do some more winter fishing podcasts and some videos. We'll talk about that and a little more in depth in some of that. But it's a time to be on the water if you're able to. I know you guys in the north, the upper Midwest, cold comes to you a lot quicker than it does to us here in the southeast, but you still got some time to catch some fish. I know you're limited somewhat by what fish are in those areas. A lot of you don't have blue catfish that far north. We're blessed to have them here and have them in, the fisheries that we're in here, and it gives us some entertainment and something to fish for going into the colder months. So, big thing is stay warm out there. If you're in a boat, just use some caution. Going into the water this time of the year, not as much fun and as survivable as it is earlier in the year. So use some caution out there. And the big thing, stay warm. As it gets colder, you're going to be able to stay out there a lot longer and a lot more comfortable. If you're warm, your hands are warm, your head's warm, that type of stuff, especially if you get into some bad weather. One of our sponsors for this video, Mammut, they make some Nordic climbing gear. I've got one of their Gore-Tex jackets. I'm doing a little field trial on. It's just a shell. Quality gear like that is stuff that, can help you. If you're going to spend money on something, spend some money to stay warm. Take care of the head. Take care of the hands. That's going to be about 90% of your battle. And then having something like one of these Gore-Tex shells or something else that the wind can't penetrate is really going to help with keeping you warm out there when you're sitting on these banks, especially you guys fish at night. It's one thing fishing in the day. It's like when I deer hunt. You've got the warmth of the sunlight hitting you. And, even just a 40-degree, 45-degree high day doesn't feel that bad if there's no wind and some sun's hitting you. If it gets dark or the wind starts blowing, you're going to want to have something to keep that wind off of you and, hold that heat in. So keep all that in mind just to keep the comfort level up out there and make the time that you get on the water that much more enjoyable. Listen, if you're fishing this time of the year, you're a hardcore fisherman. The casual fisherman, the fishermen in passing, they do a lot more of the summer fishing when the weather's good. Nothing wrong with that. But when you start getting into fishing into the fall, and especially when you're out there in wintertime fishing, you can put yourself into the I'm a hardcore fishing addict, because it's not the most fun time. It's not the most enjoyable time to be out there. So if you're out there at the cold temperatures, I count you as one of mine. You're just crazy enough to get out there and get into it, and you got a hardcore nature about you. So whatever, enjoy the sport, whether you fish when the temperatures are good, or you fish when temperatures are bad. Enjoy the sport, have fun with it, enjoy it. And I hope to see you guys out on the water. And if you see me out there, come say hey. And hopefully you get into some fish. Keep sending the messages. Keep sending the text. I like getting the info and the feedback on what's going on, what's working for you, those kind of things. As always, go to DieterMelhornFishing.com. I got the contact information on there. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, drop a comment. Love to see the comments. Love to get the info. We'll catch you guys out on the water.